Hi, it's Mike Kawula of Social Quant, and you're listening to the 360 Entrepreneur with Jan Ilunga.
This is episode 170, and today we talk about Twitter for business. Here we go.
Welcome to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast, the show for entrepreneurs and small business owners who dream big and want to do bigger. Join some of the world's top entrepreneurs, internet marketers, and best-selling authors as they share their inspiring stories, their struggles, and give actionable tips that will help you build, grow, and promote your online business. Here's your host, Yanni Lunga.
Hey there, welcome to episode 170 here on the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast. You heard it, I'm your host, Yanni Lunga, coming to you all the way from up north, Helsinki, Finland. And in today's episode, we go back to one of my favorite social media platforms, if not the favorite social media platform of mine, and that's Twitter. And we're gonna get some advice at 360 degrees, really. I mean, we're gonna talk about some of the things you can do to optimize your profile. We're gonna talk about growing your following, connecting with prospects on Twitter, driving traffic, and generate sales. And we're gonna do all that with Mike Kawula. He's an entrepreneur, he's an author, Twitter marketing expert, and the co-founder of socialquant.net. And he has plenty of tips for us. The show notes for today are over at yannilunga.com/episode 170. And I'm ready. Are you ready? Cool. Here is the interview with Mike Kawula from socialquant.net. In this episode, we circle back to a topic that we have covered in the past, but we're going to shed some light on new perspective. And I'm talking about Twitter marketing. And joining us is an entrepreneur, author, Twitter marketing expert, and Inc. 500 alum. He's the CEO of socialquant.net, company that helps you grow your Twitter presence, get more engagement, web traffic, and sales. He's been featured in places like CNN, HubSpot, Entrepreneur Magazine, and he's here with us. I'm so thrilled to welcome on the show Mike Kawula. Mike, how's it going?
It is going great, and you got my last name correct. Kawula like the bear. Thank you.
You bet. I was on point. And I mean, I told you before we started recording that even though you and I have been connected on Twitter for some months now, I've known of you for a couple of years because I remember seeing you on Creative Live when I watched few sessions, few lessons, few workshops with some of the past guests of the show, like Subi Zimmerman and Kim Garst, right?
Correct. And Nathan Latka was, I've had some great fun with Creative Live, and they've got 2 studios now on the West Coast, but they do a great job, and it's just it's an amazing resource, I think, for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, no, definitely. You're so on point, and there is so much one can learn today on platforms like Creative Live, obviously, as well as places like Twitter. So I said it in the past, we talked about Twitter with somebody who I also know, Mike, who is Madeline Sklar. But I thought it would be good to come back to Twitter because the Twitter world is so big and there are so many things that we can touch on. And the first question I have for you, Mike, that really ties into, or really is a conversation starter here for the interview, is why Twitter? I mean, nowadays there are so many different social media platforms. There's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's YouTube, there is Snapchat more recently, and Periscope, and Blab, and this and that. So for all the entrepreneurs, small business owners, marketers, podcasters who are joining us, Mike, why Twitter?
Well, we're going to have a great discussion about Twitter, but, to I guess, quote unquote, sell somebody on why Twitter, it is the only social platform in my mind that you could go on and inside the next hour, regardless of what type of business owner you are, you can capture business. It doesn't matter, again, what kind of business owner. If you're a dog walker, there are people on Twitter right now who are walking their dog and having a conversation and talking about walking their dog in your local area. If you're a funeral parlor, there are people talking about grievances unfortunately, that have just happened in their lives locally.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what kind of entrepreneur you are. If you know how to utilize the tool through advanced search inside of Twitter and listen to conversations and jump in on them when appropriate in a non-creepy way, it's a huge opportunity to grab business.
I love it. And Mike, I mean, you just told us why Twitter, and most importantly, you just used what I consider to be a keyword, which is listening. Because I think, especially when we get started on Twitter, we just see it as a megaphone where we just take it, we just shout our messages out there, and we hope that people listen to them. But you said the key to really growing a presence to attract potential customers and getting business is listening. So I think the first question I have to ask you related to that is, what are some of the Twitter, what you would consider Twitter best practices? So we are on Twitter, we have our profile set up, we may have already some tweets set up using different tools. So what are some of the things we can do to really grow our presence and start a conversation really with those who may be potential customers of ours?
Yeah, so I think it starts with first covering just the basics on Twitter. And the basics are, you've got to make sure that you've got a good profile set up on Twitter. And what I mean by that is, number one, take a look at your Twitter cover and make sure that you've got a good Twitter cover that describes or will resonate with the type of individual that you want to connect with. Because when somebody follows you or you follow somebody on Twitter, before they follow you back, a majority of folks aren't using automated following tools to follow back. So what they'll do is they'll come and take a look at your profile. And what they look at first is obviously, bam, right there at the top of Twitter is your Twitter cover. So who are you? Make sure that you've got a good Twitter cover photo there. And you can make one for free on a site like canva.com, or you can go to Fiverr if you don't feel like making it yourself and spend less than $5 and have a couple of different Twitter covers made for you. That's number one. Number two, make sure that you've got a really, really good profile picture of you. I know we all spend a lot of money on our business logos and we love them, but on Twitter, people want to connect with who you are. So put up a photo there and make sure that it's a recent photo, not something of, I go to a lot of conferences each year, and it's amazing sometimes when folks come up to me. It's just happened to me at Social Media World, and somebody, they're like, Mike, I've been following you for years, and, they said that I was always talking with them. I did not recognize this person. I then went to their Twitter profile and looked at it, and she had a picture from like when she was like, in her late 20s, and now she's in her late 40s or whatever. I didn't ask, but put a good profile picture, because, it's funny, years ago, I went out to NMX, which was a great show. It's no longer around, but there were, hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs. And it was just so great for me to be able to, before I went out to the show, see who I wanted to connect with. I started conversations on Twitter with them. And then when I was out at the show, bam, the ones that looked like their profile picture, I could go up to. They knew right away who I was. And, we just had a great time at the show. So, make sure you have an updated profile picture. The next thing is, you got to make sure that you have a really good bio and let people know who you are, really connect with them there. And by all means, most importantly, do not put hashtags inside of your bio on Twitter. Two reasons why. First of all, you want to utilize the character space that you have there. When you put a hashtag in there, people are drawn to clicking on links, right? I mean, when we're online, we just click on things. And what happens is if you had, hashtag entrepreneur, well, if somebody clicks on that, they've just left your Twitter profile and now are looking at everybody else that's using hashtag entrepreneur. So don't put a hashtag there for that reason. And also, that area is searchable by Twitter and by Google already. So you don't need to worry about putting a hashtag there. Now, if you have a cause, like something that resonates with your audience that's unique, then you can. If it's something like, I just shared with you Messenger's doc, which is, a documentary that's being done for podcasters. Well, that, they have a unique hashtag that if you were to click on that, it's going to bring you into a conversation about everybody talking about this documentary. So from that standpoint, it's fine. But if it's like a word like entrepreneur or startup or dog walker, don't do that. No hashtags in your bio. The next thing is, make sure that you have a good link that's live. That there's so many times when I'll click on somebody's link to quickly go see their website, and it's an older link or a dead URL. So if you don't have a website, it's fine. Send them somewhere else where you want to connect with them. Maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's Facebook. It really doesn't matter. Just utilize that space there. I recommend also putting in your location. I think location is good because, for folks like myself who do a lot of searching on Twitter to see who I want to connect with, location really does help. And make sure that when you do it, that when you start to type in your location, like if you were to say, for me, I'm in Tampa, Florida. If I started typing in Tampa, wait until Twitter recognizes it and gives you the choice. Because a lot of times what happens is folks will just type so fast, they'll be like New York City, and then, save it. But Twitter didn't recognize it, and now that's not searchable from a geolocation standpoint. So give Twitter a second when you're going in there to actually get that location picked. And then one last thing that I just want to talk about, and that's the power of a pinned tweet. So again, what I talked about in the beginning is that when I go out and follow people, before they follow me back, they're going to come and look at my profile. And the two links that get the most clicks are either the link underneath my bio or the link that's on top of my first tweet. And that's what's called a quote unquote pinned tweet, meaning that you can control the first tweet that everybody sees when they come to your Twitter profile. And so for me, I know, that I help folks grow their Twitter following with relevant followers. So the pain point, the itch that folks need is that they want to know how they can get Twitter followers, whether they utilize my company to do it or if they want to do it themselves. So what do? I give away a free ebook at the top of my Twitter profile that says, how to get great Twitter followers. Well, I use a bit.ly link, and I'll give you just a quick little tip. If you take any bit.ly link that you ever see and you want to see the statistics on that, meaning how many people actually engaged with that actual tweet or that bit.ly link, just put a plus at the end of that bit.ly, and that will show you that person's statistics. And if you look at my statistics, you'll see that tweet has been retweeted, 6, 7, 800 times, but the link has been clicked on well over 6,000 times. And I've gotten over 3,000 email addresses on that because I convert at 50%.
Wow, Mike. I mean, you just dropped so many value bombs, and I love the fact that you talked now the last point that the pin tweet is something that is so critical, but it's still that is, I dare to say, underutilized, at least for by some people. And you said it in your case, for example, you use it to generate leads, so that's great. If we are podcasters, or maybe we want to promote our new book or our latest video or our upcoming webinar, we can definitely leverage it for that. You told us a little bit more about what makes a great bio, so to, if possible, to avoid including hashtags unless they are unique hashtags. And then it's great that you touched on the profile picture, because I so know what you mean when sometimes people have profile pictures where there is a sort of disconnect between the way they look now offline and the way they present themselves. And you talked about the cover picture, and I want to ask you about that. And it's great that you started, Mike, to talk about how to really take advantage of the digital real estate we have on Twitter, because we talked about especially the profile picture, the bio. We talked about that, I believe it was in episode 3 with Phil Pallen, so quite some time ago, but it's good to get a reminder of things that needs to be done, especially because we may have new things that we want to push, new products and stuff like that. So it's good to keep that in mind and kind of tweak our profile accordingly. So when it comes to the cover picture, you said we can use something like Canva and do it ourselves. There are cheap solutions like Fiverr where we can hire a designer and let them do their thing. When it comes to the kind of the layout of a header image, what advice do you have? What can be included there? I mean, I've seen so many great examples, and before I share those, Mike, I want to see what is your take on that.
Well, the one thing that I would say is that, for instance, you said if you're a podcaster, right? So a lot of podcasters are on other podcasts, right? So you've in life, people make, very quick impressions, right? So some folks, hopefully I resonated with a lot of folks immediately upon this show. Some folks you won't. So when somebody comes to look at your profile, give them an opportunity to say, why should I want to follow this person? Who are they? So if you've been on other podcasts, or in other, authority type of profiles, like for me, I've been on CNN, Inc. magazine, Entrepreneur. I've been interviewed by Tony Robbins. So I want to share stuff like that because, I'm not looking at it to toot my own horn, but I just know that when folks see that, they say, well, why do I want to follow this person then? And, who are they? So, for me, I think it's real important that if you have something that, an accomplishment, an award or something of that sort, put it up there, get personal also. So for me, you can see on mine, it looks a little silly. Now, I am not a graphic designer. I'll tell you that right now. So I am, I'm terrible at this stuff, but I just wanted folks to resonate with who I was. So you can see on the left-hand side, it's my name in big, Mike Kawula. I'm a dad, a husband, an entrepreneur, an author, and a CEO of Social Quant. And then I say, as seen on CNN, Inc., HubSpot, Entrepreneur. And then on the right-hand side, you just see silly pictures of me and my family. You see me wearing "Get Out of the Building," which is a big quote from Lean Startup. I'm a Lean Startup mentor where I help startups. And, that shirt I know will resonate with a lot of people who are familiar with the Lean philosophies. So, I think, however you can make it personal, but also let folks know who you are. If I have a webinar going on or a book promotion, which I have a big book promotion coming out soon, I will change the Twitter cover also. So, if your business is seasonal, change it based on the season. I mean, that real estate you can change almost every day. Back to that pinned tweet. For my pinned tweet, when you look at it, I change my pinned tweet probably once a week when I have something big going on. And what I do is, and I recommend this to everybody, by the way, is that if you click on the actual time. So for me, this last pinned tweet that I have up there is October 28th, 2015. If I click on that, that will actually give me the URL of that tweet. So what I do is when I change to, like, let's say, a webinar that's coming up, or if I'm on this podcast, I'll promote it for a little bit. What I'll do is I'll click on that where it says 10:24 a.m. October 28th. I will save that URL in an Excel spreadsheet. And then when I'm done with my promotion of whatever else I'm trying to promote, I'll switch back to this. Why do I switch back? Well, it's been retweeted 779 times. It's got a ton of, again, it's back to that credibility, right? Somebody comes, they look at this, they're like, oh my gosh, if they look at my business account has been retweeted 1,200 times. So it's that whole, social proof. But to find that tweet, because it was back in October 28th, I tweet 48 times minimum a day. If I'm on a tweet chat party, I can tweet over 100 times a day. And when I'm at a conference, I'll tweet 200 to 300 times a day. So how would I ever find this? So I save it in an Excel, and then when I want to come back to it, bam, I go back to it.
Man, that's dynamite. Thank you for sharing that with us, Mike. And it's great that you made the example of your own cover image. I love it. And you said there is the social proof element, so as seen in and on this place, that place, that place. And then you also added some images that give people a glimpse of kind of your personality, who you are. And then you said it, if you have, for example, a webinar coming up that you want to promote, that's what that's what is gonna be featured there. I know I did that with the Podcast Success Summit, the online conference I organized before the summit and during the summer. The summit, that was my header cover, my cover image. So it's important for everybody really to understand that, it isn't that you set up your profile today, that's it. You can tweak it constantly. And thank you for sharing the tip of clicking on the date and time so that we can use that link again, and the social proof, the engagement, our pinned tweet has had up until now is still gonna show is still gonna be shown there, even if we decide to come back and reshare it, let's say next week. And when it comes to listening and really starting the conversation on Twitter, Mike, and finding relevant people to have that conversation with, and some of those could turn out to be potential clients. What advice do you have? What are some of the things we can do? And this obviously also ties into the location aspect of your profile you mentioned, especially if we do business locally. That's something to keep in mind. So what are some of the things we can do to find relevant people in our space to have the conversation with potential clients?
Sure. So before we go into that, let me just wrap up on some of the basics. There was just one thing I didn't point out, and I'll just share this with you. We've connected here at Social Quant 10 million people on Twitter, so we have a lot of data, right? We have a lot of statistics about what works and what doesn't. And I'll share with you one little funny thing, and that's your theme color. So when you edit your profile, you have the ability to actually change your theme color of what shows up. And I recommend to everybody to use like a brown or little bit of a darker color. And the reason for that is I've seen a lot of folks, or our data has shown, the folks that use light colors like yellow, for instance, because yellow is so light and the Twitter background is white, if you're on a mobile device, sometimes if you have a link, it can be invisible.
Okay, yeah.
Everybody, like if you could, just go to your theme area underneath, when you edit your profile, and you can change the color there. Big difference, because if you have a too light of a color, you're missing out on a big opportunity of what could drive success on Twitter. So let's go into your next question, which was, how can you find relevant folks? So the best way, in my opinion, to do that is, first off, you got to know who your audience is following out there. So I like to use a tool called Right Relevance, and hopefully you can link up to it in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Free tool. And all you need to do is to go in. So for me, for instance, I know that a lot of folks who listen to, startup type of podcasts, who, are big into other social media tools, I know that they would be most likely to want to do business with my company, right? So what I do is in Right Relevance, I would say, for instance, social media marketers. And if I typed in social media marketers or podcasters, and you click on the button there, it's going to show you a ton of data. But what's interesting about this tool also is that you can click on an area that says, who are the influencers? And then it shows you all of their Twitter handles. So what I recommend everybody does is pull up that person's Twitter handle, but just all you need to do is to go into Twitter search, that little search bar. And for instance, let's say if, Charlene Johnson, right? She's, pretty big on Twitter. If I typed in without the @ symbol, just Charlene Johnson, which is her Twitter handle, and hit enter, I'm going to see everybody that's having a discussion about Charlene Johnson. So if, for instance, if I'm in the fitness industry, now Charlene's also a podcaster, what I would want to do is go down that profile or the list of all the people who are tweeting about Charlene Johnson and start having conversations with them, maybe retweeting them, following them, favoriting some of their tweets. Again, if Charlene Johnson has a relevant audience of people that I'm interested in connecting with, then this is a great way. So like when I go on Twitter right now, I see in the last hour, probably, 15 different folks, different profiles of people who are sharing Charlene's content right now. So when I start to click on some of their profiles, I see, this one gentleman right now, he's, looking to have better health. He says it right in his profile. He enjoys, good food, good drinks, fitness, positive energy, leadership, motivation, and making residual income. Well, if that's what I'm interested in, I'm going to follow him and maybe send him a personalized tweet. And if you do this, let's say every morning you just said, Twitter is going to be one of my focuses from a marketing standpoint. Then take 15 minutes to 20 minutes every day and go into Twitter search and start following randomly, in an organized format, like what we just discussed, anywhere between, 50 to 100 people a day. A percentage of those folks, if you know your audience, so if I know, again, Charlene's audience is most likely to connect with me, if I did this, I should have at least 20% of those folks follow me back. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, this is what our tool does. This is what Social Quant does, right? Automated for you. But you can do this yourself. You don't need to pay a company like us doing it, if you have 20 minutes a day to do it yourself. So you take 20 minutes every day and do this. For me, I use, I know folks who listen to the podcast Mixergy are very likely to want to utilize my services. So Mixergy is one that I'm always pulling up on Twitter and just going in and starting to have conversations. And when I tweet about Mixergy, it gets retweeted a ton of times that now I'm exposed to other people's audiences. So, back to your question, how can you build an audience? Get on Twitter, go into the search function, and just start finding folks who are having conversations. You can do that with hashtags, but I really recommend doing it around Twitter handles of folks who have a similar interest as you.
Okay, that's great. And Mike, quick question. The tool you mentioned, how are if we type in our keyword, or in this case, Shalene Johnson, the profiles that are displayed, are they organized in a particular way? Meaning, for example, from the profile with the most followers to one with the least followers, or maybe to the one that has been more active recently to the one that hasn't been active, or are they organized alphabetically?
They go, it's organized by clout. So those with the highest, clout rankings.
Okay. Actually, that's very good then, especially if we are trying to connect with people who have a certain influence. And you said it. I mean, we can do it with a tool like Social Quant if we want to do it more rapidly in a more automated fashion. Or we can also say, okay, every day I'm going to set aside 15, 20 minutes, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on this specific person and the people who are following him or her or are talking about him and her, and then I'm going to start the conversation with them. And that's, I think, is a great advice, Mike, because I think that when we think of Twitter, we don't always set up kind of habits like this that you said. That if we do it consistently, our presence on Twitter is going to grow first and foremost, but also the number of people we're going to be connected with is going to grow as well. So in terms of potential business opportunities, this is really gold. And I want to point out to a couple of links. Obviously, like every episode, I'll link to everything in the show notes we've talked about so far, Mike. And I want to point out two links. The first one is the one of your company, so socialquant.net. And the second one is your Twitter at Mike Kawula. So if you're here with Mike and I, you're enjoying this conversation, you want to maybe learn from him, you want to study how certain things Mike does on Twitter, you can do that. And obviously, if you connect with him, make sure to let him know you listen to this interview, and make sure to give him a virtual high five or fist bump, whatever you prefer. And this is great, Mike, because really I think you're really opening the eyes of many of the people who are here with you and I. So now I want to ask you about the next step. So
I just want to give one more way to increase your Twitter followers in a more automated fashion that's absolutely free.
Let's hear it.
And I know I keep saying increase your followers. I mean, this isn't just me saying it because, Social Quant, that's what we do. But, Twitter themselves says that for every 10% increase you have in your followers, you'll see a 50% increase in your engagement. And that's, again, if you're following the right types of folks. So if you're trying to get more YouTube views or more downloads of your podcast or whatever it may be, more selling your book more. If you increase your profile by 10%, you're going to see 50% more people engaging with that profile. So one of the ways to do it in a very automated, easy fashion is using a tool like If This, Then That. And I'll share with you one of the ways that I was using it recently. I was out at Social Media Marketing World, and what I did is the hashtag for the event was SMMW16.
Right.
So I go to the tool, If This, Then That, and I set it up what's called a recipe. And it's free, easy to do. And I basically said, if somebody tweets using the hashtag SMMW16, then add them to a Mike Kawula Twitter list. So anytime that during those 4 days, and SMMW16 started to trend on Twitter because it was being mentioned worldwide by so many people, not just people who are at the conference, but people who are listening to the conference on Twitter virtually. So what I was able to do was I changed my pinned tweet to something about Social Media Marketing World. So, and then if folks looked at my profile, they saw that I was very actively tweeting about Social Media Marketing World. And then when they mentioned SMMW16, all of a sudden they get a notification that Mike Kawula's added them to, awesome people's list about Social Media Marketing World. And I do this for like everything. So again, back to Mixergy or startups, I know that they love our tool. I know entrepreneurs love our tool. So I have, several different lists. Some of them are public, some of them are private. But if it's a public list, they will get notified that they've been added to a list. And it's a very powerful, automated way to get in front of a ton of people discussing a topic that you want to be a part of.
That's great. And you mentioned If This, Then That. I love the app, and there is both the web-based version as well as the smartphone app, which is a plus. So I love the example you made, and this is great because it's something we can use pretty much around anything, and especially if we're maybe thinking about connecting with people who are gonna be attending a specific conference or using a specific hashtags, like you made the example of Social Media Marketing World, which is great. I love it. So if we're looking really for ways to connect with more and more people, something like If This, Then That can really help us do that faster and in a more automated way, so that we don't have to literally spend our entire day in front of our computer on Twitter. And yeah, Mike, so you share with us some of the things we can do to really identify people we want to connect with and then start a conversation. You told us, for example, about the pinned tweet, that's something you use to generate leads. So that's something you use for getting people from Twitter to your own platform, in this case, your email list. And the question I want to ask you here, do you have any advice on some of the things we can do to do exactly, or like to follow your footsteps basically, and take people from Twitter onto our own platform, being our email list or a specific blog post or something like that? So basically, how can we use Twitter to drive traffic and generate leads?
Yeah, so again, it starts with that there's three keys to it. It's one, making sure, again, that you have the basics set up. So if you don't have the basics that we discussed in the beginning, it's not going to work for you, or you're going to be like, pushing that boulder up the mountain. So take 10 minutes, do the basics that we discussed. Secondly, make sure that you're following, again, the relevant folks who will interact and be interested in what you do, because it's very important. For instance, we recently had a client that I was talking to. We built them, 10,000 plus Twitter followers, and she was in the fitness industry. And she's like, you guys used to drive me so much traffic to my website, and now all of a sudden I'm not getting any traffic over the last 30 days from Twitter. And so, I took some time, I looked at her account, and noticed when I went to her account that she was talking a lot about candles and, the stuff that she makes at home. She was a multi-level marketer. So in the past, she used to sell this like fitness health drink, and now she changed her complete messaging. So her audience that was built before was all based on folks who are interested in fitness. And now all of a sudden she's tweeting about candles. Of course they're not going to interact with her. So it's very,
Right.
the number 2 thing again is to, and I wanted to give that example, is make sure that you're building relevant followers. And then the last thing is that you've got to make sure that you're actively tweeting on Twitter, because, Twitter is very loud, right? It's moving very fast. And, it doesn't matter how many followers you do there, if they're highly interested in who you are and have you on a Twitter list, most of them are probably going to, be looking in their news feed. So you've got to make sure that you're in their feed a lot. So one thing that I do is you can use 2 different tools. There's a lot of different tools out there. My 2 favorites are Post Planner and Social Oomph. And basically what I do is, I have a ton of content, right? On my personal blog, I have over 500, blog articles about entrepreneurship. And then on my, social quant site, we have, well over what's called 150 different blogs. So what we do is we put them into these, tools, and we tell this tool, listen, tweet these out once every, for one of our accounts, we're tweeting once every 25 minutes. And so by doing that, we're sending out well over, 50 tweets a day. And so we're not constantly doing, I know some people tweet every 10 minutes automated. We try to keep it anywhere in between 25 to 30 minutes. You have to find your own balance. It will be different for everybody, right? But what you do is, set that up with those. It could be, even quotes, so for instance, on my personal profile, you'll see I tweet blog posts, I tweet quotes. So folks, they're motivational quotes. And then my last thing is I tweet, different things that I've pulled out of different books that I've written that I sell on Amazon. So those are all automated, and every day I drive sales of books on Amazon just by sending out quotes of them and then a link back to Amazon. So I put all of that content into these, what I call, these queues. And again, you can use the tool Post Planner or Social Oomph. There's other more expensive tools out there that you can do it with, but those 2 are very affordable for entrepreneurs. They're under $20 each, very, affordable. Post Planner is only $7, I believe, so it's really, really cheap. Load up your Twitter feed with, take a weekend and just load it up with 50 to 100 different tweets. Now, I'm a little bit geeky, so I'm going to, personally, I test things out. So if I have a new blog post that comes out, I'll typically tweet it out, let's call it 5 to 6, 7 times, in a single day throughout different accounts. And then I look at, each one has different copy. So I'll look and say, well, which one had the most engagement? And then that's the one that I take each time we have a new blog post, and I put it into the queue. So now it's just always going to recircle and come back. So what happens is my queue goes 1 through 150 of the different blog posts. And then when it hits 150, it's going to go back up to number 1 again and start with that. So this way, you don't have to sit there all day and be tweeting, right? So you can, have this automated because you've got to obviously be doing other things during the day. So now, again, let's just circle back to everything. If you've done the basics, if you're following folks, whether you're using a service like us or doing it yourself, and then tweeting on a regular basis, you've got an automated system that is getting you not only connecting with new relevant people, but also putting good content that that they're interested in and more likely to want to click on. That system sends me, just from Twitter this month alone, I will get close to 40,000 visitors to my website just from Twitter.
Wow. No, that's gold. And it's great, Mike, that you mentioned Post Planner, you mentioned Social Oomph, and for those who have been here on the show before, they probably have heard me talk about Social Oomph, and you said it is so powerful, especially if we have any type of evergreen content. So content that is relevant also tomorrow, a week from now, 6 months from now, and that it can be podcast episodes, it can be blog post articles, it can be shows we've been featured on, it can be YouTube videos. So you said it, Social Oomph allows us to put in the work at the beginning so we can create a queue or series of queues, so repositories with a series of tweets, and then we just set up the parameters and we say to Social Oomph, okay, pick a tweet from here every X minutes or every X hours, so that then we don't have to worry about those anymore. And that I think is great, like you said, to if somebody's here with you and I really, and they may be like, whoa, okay, Mike, Jan, you just told me about a fantastic tool, but I have hundreds of blog posts or podcast episodes. I would really encourage what you told us, Mike, and to everybody to take a moment, let's say this weekend, carve out some time to really put the work in once, because it may sound tedious, especially if you have hundreds of pieces of content already, but you're going to see the benefits long term. Because if you're using something like Hootsuite or Buffer and you want to do this, you have to manually write every single tweet, whereas with Social Oomph, you put in the work once and then Social Oomph works its magic. And also, if you're using relevant hashtags, is a great way, because it means that every single day you're going to tap into communities that are having a discussion about a specific topic. So again, you're going to be able to do that, and you're going to have more time to focus on other things. So if you only have 30 minutes a day to spend on Twitter, you can use those to really connect with people, because Social Oomph is going to be doing the marketing part for you. And Mike, throughout this conversation, the name of Social Quant has come up a couple of times. So I think to wrap up this fantastic conversation, this question is in order. Can you tell all of us a little bit more about what Social Quant does? And also, I know that you guys have a free trial. I know you also have webinars that people can attend, and I'll link to everything in the show notes. So, Mike, what does Social Quant do?
Yeah, so a 30,000 foot overview is basically we are everything that we've discussed during this podcast, we just do it for you so that you don't need to do it yourself. And it's $25 a month. So we're a social listening tool. So a lot of folks believe that they should go out and you look at people's Twitter bios, right? And if you look at a Twitter bio, if they use the word fitness or entrepreneur and that's the type of person I want to connect with, then maybe I should follow them. Well, Twitter's biggest issue is that there's over 1 billion people that have signed up for Twitter, but there's only 300 million active users on Twitter, right? So what we believe is that you want to listen to people who are active on Twitter and having live conversations. So what our company does is we monitor live tweets that are going on. And for our thousands and thousands of people who use our tool, what we do is when we see somebody that mentions a keyword or a Twitter handle that somebody's given us that they want to, be part of that conversation and follow that person, our algorithm will run them through a filter. And what that filter does is we look at a whole bunch of other tweets of theirs and make sure that, they're on topic, that they're appropriate, not talking about anything that might be deemed, something, you wouldn't want to follow. And if they pass our filter, we initiate a follow to see if they follow back. And our team will, wait. And then if they don't follow back, we'll unfollow them. And if they do follow back, great. And then we move on. And we're doing this, extremely rapidly, staying within the terms and conditions of what Twitter allows on a daily basis. And what folks see is that over, again, a 30, 60, 90-day period is not that their Twitter profile has doubled, but also that they've seen a huge amount of increase in engagement. And that's the key, again, is that you want to make sure that your engagement's going up, because if we're growing a following, but engagement isn't going up, that just means then that you're not, connecting with that audience. That means you're either getting the wrong type of follower or you're not tweeting enough good content. So again, if you automate what we just spoke about, everything today, meaning, set up Social Oomph or Post Planner with some really good tweets, and then have that following process that we can do for you, or you can do it yourself, you will send yourself continual traffic to YouTube videos, to your podcast, to your book, whatever it is that you want to do. This works. I mean, my 13-year-old son has a YouTube channel. He's got, hundreds of subscribers to it, and he gets tons of views on his YouTube. He's making money at 13 years old from YouTube following this exact philosophy. So anybody can do it. It works. It's easy to do, highly effective, and it builds up your brand. Really, I mean, it's social proof. And even if you're a local business owner, this works. I mean, I owned a local cleaning company back in the early 2000s, and I had, we were doing millions a year, But I tracked over $100,000 a year in business was coming just from Twitter. Why? I was talking about local events, and I automated that also, meaning that anytime somebody spoke about like a local football game at the high school, I was the first one that would tweet about it. And so people followed us locally. And then guess what? If they needed a service like that, we were the ones that they thought of first. Why? Because we were very active on a local basis. So it doesn't matter if you're local, national, or international. This can work for any type of business owner.
I love it. So you said it, Mike. I mean, we can do things by ourselves, and that's going to take more time, or we can rely on something like socialquant.net to get started and really take our Twitter presence, our Twitter marketing efforts to the next level. And Mike, I want to say thank you so much for being here on the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast, for sharing your expertise and telling us a little bit more about how we can use Twitter not only to promote our own content, but really to identify key players, start a conversation with them, and then have also business and leads from Twitter. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And, we appreciate having the opportunity to come on your show. If anybody's got questions on any of this, if I went too fast or what have you, if you want me to take a look at your Twitter profile and just offer you some, quick tips, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at Mike Kawula, or just email me at mike@socialquant.net. And I'm happy to answer questions or look at your profile and just, offer you some advice. I have a book. It's called Twitter Marketing That Sells. Feel free, if you'd like, email me directly and I'll just send you a free copy. So you don't have to buy it there on Amazon. But, Jan, thank you for, having us on the show and letting us talk to your audience. We greatly appreciate it.
No, the pleasure was all mine. And thank you, Mike, for being so nice. So you heard it. Make sure to go to the show note page. You're going to find the links to everything, including Mike's email, his Twitter account, and also the link to the book, so that you can learn more about it. And if you're interested, you can reach out to Mike and connect with him by email or Twitter, or you can grab your copy on Amazon. And we are back. Woo, Mike, my headphones are still on fire. Thank you so much for dropping all those value bombs. And you heard it. Mike really shared many golden nuggets, and now is all about you, and really about turning the theory into practice. So really implement the advice. Some of the action steps I want to share with you are, first of all, optimize your profile. You heard it, Mike gave us tips for the bio, images. Make sure to have an optimized Twitter profile. Step number 2, get social oomph. And if you want to use my affiliate link, you find the link to social oomph and everything else Mike and I have talked about, including his new book, Twitter Marketing That Sells. Everything is at the show notes over at yanilunga.com/episode 170. So as I was saying, make sure to get a tool like Social Oomph and create cues to promote your evergreen content, podcast episodes, blog posts, videos, infographics, webinar replays, whatever you have that is evergreen and you want to share on autopilot. Use Social Oomph to do that. And then you heard Mike mention the tool called Right Relevance. So make sure to check that out to identify influencers and start connecting with their followers. This is it for today. Once again, everything Mike and I have talked about is over at yanilunga.com/episode 170. And in next week's episode, we're going to move away from social media for a moment, and we're going to talk about a very, very powerful thing you can do to build authority and tap into new audiences. And that's guest blogging. Take care and have a fantastic day.
Thank you for listening to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast. For more tips and tools, head over to www.yanilunga.com.